And a good afternoon to you. It's Sunday, April 8th, 2018. This is the Central Florida Computer Society Windows Special Interest Group, otherwise known as the WinSIG. We meet the second Sunday of every month, live in Castleberry and online through the use of Zoom from the Central Florida Computer Society's account. My name is Huey Poplock. I am the moderator and the Windows Special Interest Group host and chairman. And let's move to the website. And I should have that open here. And I did make it large, but let's go ahead and look here first. And if you go to the Windows SIG website, you'll see on the right-hand side where you can subscribe to our WinSIG newsletter. Please do so, and you'll get the link to the meetings, and you'll also get information on what's going to be covered, what was covered last month, some links from last month, and usually an article if I can find something interesting to pass along to you. And this month it was quite a long article from PC World Magazine. Okay, let's go ahead and like this. These are the topics that we're going to talk about today. The first one I want to talk about is one we discussed actually at CFCS many years ago, talking about the fact that CDs and DVDs are not finite, and there is a life expectancy, believe it or not, of about 5 years. So if you've recorded and backed up pictures and data to a CD or a DVD, and you had done that back when I was still living in that area, there's a good possibility they could start disintegrating. Some of the data may be difficult to access, if not the entire CD or DVD. And that's one of the parts of what I'm going to play for you. It's a video which Vint Cerf, the person who is known as the father of the internet, who actually started the internet, talks about our digital content and it disappearing. And I thought this was an interesting article and something that we should at least be aware of and maybe even discuss. Although we may not discuss it today, we'll just mention it, and it might be a topic for one of your meetings, the Tech SIG or something else. But let's go ahead and take a look at this. And this was an article that appeared on Kim Commando's website. And as soon as it comes up, it says, with increasing reliance on the internet.
What's this digital dark age that you're worried about?
Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I
may have to turn it up on your end.
In the show. People think that bits are somehow immortal.
Right. Yeah.
Because somehow they're this ethereal thing in cyberspace, right? Well, they're actually real things. They're magnetic pulses that are stored on a magnetic medium, or they are an optical disc like a CD-ROM or a DVD or a Blu-ray. So bits are recorded in media. The media are not necessarily going to last forever. So the physical media may decay. Worse, the readers of those media may stop functioning. So even if you still have the bits in your CD-ROM, if you don't have a CD-ROM reader, you can't read the bits. And some of your viewers may remember things like 5 1/4-inch floppy disks from the 1980s and the Apple IIe machines and the IBM PCs, then the 3.5-inch floppy disks, then the CD-ROMs, and then the DVDs, and now the Blu-rays. It's really hard to find a 3.5-inch floppy reader or a 5 1/4-inch floppy reader. So if you had all of your information carefully stored away in those media, you may not be able to read them again. It gets worse. Suppose you can read them, but it's 50 years from now. And you've got bits that were recorded today, in the year 2068. Even if you could read the bits, it could be that the format of those bits, the way in which they're interpreted, requires a piece of software to figure out what the bits mean, how they should be presented if it's an image or a video, or how you should interact with it if it was a spreadsheet. What if the software doesn't exist? What if the operating system that the old software used to run on doesn't exist anymore? What if the latest software doesn't know how to read the formats of those complex digital objects? Guess what? That information is gone. And that's why I'm so worried about the digital recording world disappearing out from under us over time.
You're worried that what could disappear?
The information contained in those bits will be gone because you don't know what the bits mean anymore. You can't run the old software. You can't run the old operating system. Maybe you could emulate old hardware and run an old operating system and run the old application, and people do. That's something that is done today. But it isn't systematic. We don't have a systematic way of making sure that the digital information that we create today will still be usable 100 years from now. And that's why I'm worried about a digital dark age. Think for just a minute about the other media that we have used to record information. Way back in the day, there were these clay tablets, and the Assyrians would record on the clay tablets the contents of a warehouse. The clay tablet was not expected to last forever. After all, it was only for temporary use of the inventory in the warehouse, except the warehouse burned down and the tablet became baked, and now it sits around. It's 5,000 years old, and we can still read it if we can read cuneiform. Wow, talk about a long-lived medium. And then think about vellum. Vellum is sheepskin or goatskin.
Yeah.
Things that are written on vellum have lasted 1,000 years or more, and some of them are illuminated, and you can still read them today if you can read Latin and Greek. They're beautiful, and they've lasted forever. Think of the media that we use now. We use cheap paper, which doesn't last for very long. We don't even use rag content unless we're thinking about it. Or we're using digital media. We're lucky if they last a decade or two. So people who are taking all those pictures with their mobiles and storing them away in the cloud should be really worried about this and thinking, if that picture is important to me, they should print it out on high-quality photographic paper and store it away in an acid-free, envelope, because we know that'll last at least 150 years. I challenge you to show me digital technology and readers that will last that long.
Okay. Well, this is your next project. You're the genius. Figure it out.
I am actually working very hard on that. We've been looking at something we're calling digital vellum.
Right. But you're not going to hurt any sheep.
No. No sheep were harmed in the production of digital vellum.
We
need digital sheep.
We need digital sheep.
Okay. Interesting. Let me go ahead and on full screen that and take that away. He makes some interesting points, and it brought me back to when we were talking about this, and then also my move. When I moved from the Orlando area over here to the Bradenton area, I had to clean out all of my stuff, and I downsized tremendously. I came across a lot of zip disks, and backups of my, I'm trying to think, Palm Pilot, and backups on tape from my from Colorado drives that had backup of information that I didn't have a Colorado drive. I didn't have a way to connect it. I didn't have any way to do it. So what I had to do was basically to cut up the tapes so they couldn't, if someone did have the ability to go in and look at them, they couldn't. But I don't know of anybody who could have. There's probably somebody out there that's got an old Colorado drive somewhere's, or at least 4 years ago when I made the move, but they may not work today. And pictures, if you remember, you probably got family photos going back close to 100 years, around the time that cameras first became popular, and your family took pictures, and they may even have some film, that were recorded on media that there's no longer a way to play. You may have some slides, but you don't have a slide projector. But that media, at least you can look at and take a and view. When it's digital media, like Mr. Cerf said, there's no way to read them. And if you could read them, if you had the hardware, you may not have the software to do that. So our children and our children's children may not have a way to look at all those pictures that we're taking, that we're glad to, that we say that, well, gee, this is so much nicer than when we were kids. We don't have to worry about printing them out. But you know what? They might not be able to view them several years down the road, in 10 or 20 or 30 years or 50 years down the road. Something to really think about. And of course, there are people who are thinking about it, like Cerf, and trying to find ways in which they're going to deal with it. What about books and libraries? Libraries have withstood time. You can find a book that's 100 or 200 years old, or even hundreds of years old. And if the paper hasn't disintegrated, you can still read them. Somebody can make a copy of them. And somehow the words are still available directly. But if it's digital and we digitize everything and then the books go away, we'll have no way to preserve and to view so much information that we have available to us. So it's something to think about, and perhaps a good discussion for a meeting. And before I go on, any questions from the audience on that in Castleberry? Any comments, just since you're meeting in a library? Dick, anybody have any comments? Anybody watching me?
You want a comment? We're watching you, and we have a comment.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. I happen to collect books. I have some of those books that are.
We can't hear you. I hear that you're talking, but I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Books that are 700 or 800 years old, and the difference in longevity has to do with the fact that their paper is made out of pure materials. Modern books are made out of like newsprint type stuff that rots away, wood chips. So longevity in modern books is not very good. If you buy turn of the century, I mean the second last century, paper novels, for instance, they've all turned yellow and they're rotting. So older books can last a long time. And I have a couple of vellum manuscripts. In fact, one I bought from the Prime Minister of Greece at the time, Andreas Papandreou, who was replaced by George Papadopoulos. You may have heard that. Not the same person, but anyway. And that probably lasts another couple thousand years. It was written the year, or it was made in a Spanish monastery the year that Columbus set sail for the United States, 1492. It lasted that long. So you're right about those things, and I worry about digital media too. What about the cloud? What about keeping your photos on the cloud and giving a bunch of family members access? What about sending CD copies, as I did recently, to a number of relatives? Actually, I did it. I handed them out at a funeral because they all showed up. I just gave a bunch of them away because they were always asking for family pictures. And I thought, well, here they are. Digitized them for that same purpose. So can you speak to how we could distribute things if we're worried about it? Because, you know, the photos used under grandma's bed in a box, but now they're in my computer. And if I die, who knows what they'll do? Who knows if anybody will photos? I'm done.
And that's pretty much what the idea of this interview was, and something that we need to be aware of. I don't have certainly don't have an answer to it. And I know that when we talked about it at CFCS several years ago, and you may have been a part of that, I know Arvin was, the fact that there are some gold discs that you can get that will last longer and so on. But not only the media that we have to be concerned about, but the software to be able to read that media as well is something to be concerned about, and is something we certainly need to discuss, and something needs to be happening. Look at all of the old movies that that were stored, that disintegrated as film, and if they hadn't gone in and saved some of those and were able to then put it on more modern media, it would have been lost forever, and some was. So it's definitely something to think about, and I just wanted to open the meeting up with that. And if there are other user groups represented here or listen to this later, it's something for you to discuss with your group and your members, so they're aware of it, because a lot of them are saving and passing on their pictures. I know I did. I took all of our family pictures that withstood being passed on from one generation to the other, because I can remember my mother had huge boxes of pictures, and yet after a couple of moves, my brother had what was left, and there weren't many, and I digitized all of them and then put them on a CD, and then it did what you did, Bob, and that passed them out to members of the family, as well as I posted a lot of them on Facebook. But somewheres down the road, when I'm long gone, those pictures may not be able to be read or passed on. So something for us to think about.
Huey?
Yes.
Huey, there's another factor in that too. You have this great picture of Aunt Maud, which is just fine because you remember that it's Aunt Maud. However, unless you attach some sort of information to that picture to tell people that this was Aunt Maud, a few generations down the road, nobody is going to know who that is on that picture.
Well, they're going to think they are, DSC 147621, as opposed to Aunt Maud, because we don't rename our pictures for the most part. So, yeah.
Well, if you use Adobe Photoshop Elements, and again, you're tying it to a particular piece of software, you can put captions on your pictures and then accompany the picture wherever they go.
Yeah, that's true. And it's not just the Photoshop Elements. Other programs do the same. There is data that can go with the pictures, or you can name them accordingly. But again, somebody has to be able to read that down the road.
Correct.
And where when we were kids, we'd see a picture of that our grandparents took, and they marked on the back of it who everybody was. Sometimes, and not always. I've got the family pictures, but we have no idea who they are. And I've got some that, is that me or is that my brother? We don't know, as a baby, for instance. Nobody wrote down who it was. So even then, since then, we've had that issue as well. All right. Good discussion, good thoughts, and something for us all to think about. Let's take a look at the next item here. Speaking of data and pictures and so on, as you know, and most of you know, if your head isn't in the sand, there's been a problem with Facebook and data. That a lot of your data that's been posted on Facebook has been made available or shared by or shared to advertisers, and they've put that information together. But what exactly does Facebook save and what's available? Well, there's a way to download and see what Facebook has. And let's take a look at that article. Let me full screen this. and make it larger. Come on. It's still loading. Oh, and of course I got a video stuck to it. Let's see how I shut that off. I don't want to watch it now. I don't see an X to shut it off. Isn't that cute?
It says close ad in the upper right.
Okay, I've got something that's blocking that. Okay, I see it now. Okay, thank you. Come on. Of course, it's not closing. It's still loading stuff. Still loading other ads. There we go. Okay, and make that larger.
You are done.
Oh, of course, I want to throw a video in there now.
Done with.
Don't pay any attention to the video. I will shut that off again. One thing I don't like about these things. Come on. Anyway, this article tells you how to download your Facebook data. I won't stay on the page long. You might want to go to it. What you're going to do is just go to settings in your Facebook, which is going to be up in this corner. You go down to settings, and then at the bottom of it, it's going to say download a copy right there. When you do that, you'll get a notice saying that it's downloading, and there'll be a link, and you can then it'll put it together as a zip file and then allow you to download it. Once you do that, you can take a look at what you have. So let's minimize this and bring up and go to my data. And I put it in, I think, in downloads. And I got to learn the Facebook data history. I did it for a couple of users. I did it for me, and I did it for another user that I have for testing. So you get a zip file, and I did it for me, and I did it for Carl, who is a fictitious person that I use. Let's take a look at Carl's. So what I got was HTML, messages, photos, and index. Let's take a look what I got for myself, see if it's the same thing or whether I had more information. Yeah, it's basically the same thing, photos, videos, and messages. Yeah, I do some messages, so that information is there. So let's stay with Carl, so I'm not giving anything away that I might be worried about. So you can go to the index.htm, and when you do that, it will bring up the information that it has. Now, this is what's downloaded and on my computer now, so I can see what's there. So I have the profile, contact information, timeline, photos, and so on. They're all here. Some information that was posted about this fictitious person, and some magazines that he follows and so on. Let's look at his contact info. And there's nothing there. Under his timeline, going back to 2011 are all of the things that were covered. Obviously, a lot more would be under mine. Under photos, these are all the photos that are posted that Carl posted. And of course, I have a lot of on mine. And then any videos that he may have posted. A list of all of his friends and when they became friends. And then any sent requests, received friend requests, removed friends, friend peer groups that may be there. And then under messages, since he doesn't message, it's some people that are there. But under mine, I've got messages going back to 2011. Any events, if he attended any or marked any, they would be there. Under security, all of his account activity, his logins, where he logged in and when, session terminated all the way from 2018, and I'm going to scoot down to the bottom. I probably could make this larger. Let's see if it does. No, it doesn't make it larger. Thought it might, but as I go, and you can see here that it goes all the way down. If you had a lot more, You can see that I got logins going on 2017. Let's see here, 2010. Session rotation, login, March 21st, 2010. So it keeps track of what browser I used, some cookies, and some other information, and then logins and logouts, any recognized machines, login protection data, all the IP addresses that I used to log in, and some administrative records as well. Security question and response changed back in 2011. So let's go back to our sheet here, and then under security, that was what we were looking at. Any ads? I think that's as if add topics, political party, independent politician, and mystery shopping. And then under applications, these are any applications that he may have set up with Bing and Bloom. Under mine, there are a lot more. Let's take a quick look at mine. Let's see. We'll backtrack that. I think we got to go back here. Go back through all of them. And it's not there. So I'll come back to my file folder list. And Facebook, and we'll move up and go to mine, which would be here. And just to show you under photos, for instance, all of those are photos that I've posted, and these are albums. So it's even though it's one number, it is a whole album of some kind of event that I went and took pictures of. Let's see. Close that. And go back to the file listing again. So those are the photos, videos, index messages. And again, my messages are all there. Some are HTMs, but you can see that hundreds and hundreds of them are out there. And there's some audio ones, some GIFs, some stickers, some videos. So all of this information is stored on my Facebook page. And you can find out what's on yours by doing the same thing I did, downloading that, opening up the zip file, creating a folder, and then going in and taking a look at the index.htm. And then a lot of information about me, and too much I just showed, which is what I was afraid of. So we'll, whoops. Probably information that's already out there on the internet anyway, so, but we'll close that. And so that's information that's out there, and you can find out what's by downloading it, and how to do that is in that article. Two other things. Yes, question. Yes.
Question here. Ted has a question.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
In Messenger, if you get a picture, can you be selective and not get all the message, but just the picture?
No, I don't know that you can. If somebody sends you something, what they sent you is what you're going to get.
Okay.
As far as I know, in Facebook. And don't forget, there are several messengers. If you've got a phone, you've got a messenger program, some kind of a text message program. You've got the messenger that's part of Facebook, but now Facebook has made that actually as a second program, but you still get to it through Facebook or by itself. And as far as I know, if they send it to you, you get it. And so you need to be careful what you open up and who you let send you messages. I hope that helps answer what your question was. Okay, I think I'm going to jump one and then go back to the diagnostics report. Let's go and check for the software. Thought this was interesting. This is a website that talks about some software to check for missing updates. One of the issues with Windows and with programs that you run is dealing with security, is they find problems with various software programs and with your operating system that makes it insecure, that makes it the ability for the bad guys to write some code, work around that issue, and get into your data, into your computer, and so on. Now, let's just think about it for a minute. I know many of you, and at many user group meetings that I've been to, people say, I don't have much on my computer. I don't have anything that people would want. Why do I have to be worried about security of my computer and be worried about information? I do some banking and so on, but it's not on my computer. Well, yes and no. Number one is when you go to your bank, a lot of you have to sign in, and when you sign in with your name and your password, and some of you have saved that on your computer, so when you go to sign in, you don't have to write in your password. Or you use the same password you use on a lot of things, or one very close to it, just by changing. It might be your dog's name plus the ages of your kids. And then the next one might be your dog's name and the age of your spouse. And then the next one, your year of birth after your dog's name. But, you know, they figure those things out. And they have programs that can figure it out very quickly as well. But what if they get into your computer? What can they see? What can't they see? One of the things they can see is if you've saved any passwords with your browser. You know, it always comes up, do you want Firefox or do you want Chrome to remember your password? Those things are shared in a text file or in a file that you can go in and you can read those passwords. Because it saved my butt a few times because I didn't write down that password when I created it. In fact, it happened to me today. I went to sign into something and I didn't have the password for it. I have a password manager where I keep track of all of these things. I never entered it. Luckily, I had used my Chrome browser to remember that password whenever I signed into that website. And I just went and I'm not, let me just quickly show you here. In Chrome, you go to settings, and under advanced, you come down to manage passwords. And I'll click that. There's all of the items that I've saved passwords to, and there's the passwords. Oh, yeah, there's dots there. But if I click this little thing here, show password, all of those can be shown. So that's really text. It's hidden text, but it's text, and I can go in. So if somebody gets access to my computer, or in the case of my phone, they can figure out, they can get my passwords. And that same is for you. So if you use that feature in Internet Explorer, in the latest Microsoft browser, or in Firefox, or any of the other ones, that information is readily available. The other problem that you have to consider if they get into your phone or your computer is they now have a clean slate in which they can use as a server and send out spam. And if it's ever traced, it's going to be traced back to you. So you really don't want people to have access to your hard drive or your data or your files at all. Excuse me. If you, and this is why you want to have a password on your computer, even if it's a home computer, and you want to have a password on your laptop for sure, and on your phone. Because if you lost your phone, somebody picked it up, you left it somewhere, and they're just little pieces of equipment that are very easily left behind, easily snapped out of your hand, easily lost. If you don't have a password on there, they can just very easily get in, and if you've remembered passwords and that sort of thing, they can just get to where you want to, where they want to go very easily. So you want to keep your where we're going with this is I was talking about updating your software. You want to update your operating system as often as they update it. I know a lot of you don't want to go past XP, or you don't want to be past Windows 7 because it works, but it's also very insecure. And this is one of the reasons I say that you need to update to Windows 10 if you're running Windows, or if you want to be very secure, go to Chromebook, which I'm not going to get into here, but which do not get viruses and you are also very, very secure. But getting back to the point again, you need to update your operating system, but you also need to update your software. And how do you know if your software needs to be updated? Well, they talk about that with this program from KC Software. It's called SuMo. And let me show you what SuMo is. I've got it on my desktop. I've run it a couple of times, but let's go ahead and run it. It only takes a couple of minutes to do it, and I'll show it to you. It goes out and it actually looks at all the software that's on my computer. I'm sorry I can't make this bigger. Let's see if I don't think it makes the print any bigger, but I might be able to full screen it. That's all it does, it makes it full screen, but it doesn't make it any bigger. But you can see all of the information that it does include about all the software that I have on this computer. I got a lot of software on it. This is my main desktop computer. And what we're going to do is, and it did remember from the last time that I ran it, but I'm just going to do it. I'm going to tell it to check. What it's going to do, it's going to go out and look at all of the software I have and figure out which version I have and what the latest version is. And apparently it goes out, it's got a database, and it can check those, or it goes to the websites. I'm not sure what it's doing, but it's telling me that I have 74 pieces of software that are okay, that are up to date. I have 46 that have that need a minor update, and 43 that need a major update. And now it's checking, and it's probably going to update those numbers, but it's going through and it's checking each one by one and checking for their dates. So it tells me the name of the program. Let's take the Cronus True Image. Cronus latest version was the version I have is 22.5.1.10640. It's getting away from me because it's going down the list. And then it says is okay. Some of these others, it's going down the list. It's down to the E's now, but you get the idea. And then it gives you, now, should I go and update all of these? Well, you got to remember a few things as far as the updates go. The updates that I have, the ones that are showing, may be a version update that costs more money. So I may not want to do that. I may not want a more recent copy of it, but I really need to be very careful that it's not a major security issue by me having the older version. I also want to make sure that some of these were giveaway of the day type programs, that if I update it, I no longer have a registered copy. Or some of them may just be, there may be a free update. So I need to go through them one at a time and kind of take a look at which ones there are. So it just went through and it finished all of them. It was out of 163 programs that I have installed, 75 or a little less than half are as up to date as they could be. And well over half need either a minor or a major update. And that amazes me. And there may be some of those that I probably should go and uninstall. I'm not using. I may not even know what they are. But this is a good program, and it's free. So I suggest you might want to take a look at that. Any questions on that before I go to the next item?
Yes, we have several questions. Hold on. Okay, Stan?
Yeah. First, sometimes I've taken programs off because they want to update every other day. It drives me crazy. But the other issue is that if access is gotten into your computer, regardless of your data, it can be used to file share and distribute other programs, other malware that somebody wants to get into your computer to use it to distribute, just like your mailing list gets attacked, your computer can be actually used to provide access for file sharing. That's very dangerous.
Yep, absolutely, and you're correct about the some programs just update often, but a lot of those programs update often because they keep finding security issues with them or bugs in them that people report, and they update and fix them. So yeah, and we don't think to check them on a regular basis. Where once in a while, if you make it a routine habit, say once a month, every couple of months, check your programs and see what needs to be updated, and then see if you're using that program, whether you want to pay, if it's a paid update, whether you really want to do it or not. There are some programs where they make some substantial differences and changes in the program, so they change the numbering and then charge more. Of course, that's how they make their money. Where the issues with the older version may not be severe enough for you to worry about doing the update if you're not using it on a regular basis, and what it does meet your needs. So it's not something that you really have to go out and update.
Okay, we have another question.
Yeah, Huey, is this for Windows only, or will it work on a Mac, an iPad, and so forth?
Oh, as far as I know, this is a Windows program. I don't know whether there's similar programs or not. That's what Google is for. But this is just a Windows program.
I've run into some programs that claim to be able to find updates for you, and often they are incomplete. Do you find this one to be more complete than most, or do you find it you haven't found anything yet that it hasn't found?
Actually, to be honest with you, I just found this in the last few weeks from an article that I read, and that's the article that's featured. And let's go ahead. I'm going to close this, and hit close and go back to the website, which is here. This article here, which was from March 18th, that I discovered the article about it, and it's from a website called Gizmos Freeware, and they do say that they did check it out to make sure that it's virus free and it's safe to use. But if there's other software out there that may or may not be, it says right here, it's 2.4 megabyte download. The file is malware free according to Virus Total, and the download site is rated as reputable by the Web of Trust. So as best they can tell, that it's there shouldn't be an issue using it. But again, just because you read a review on a program similar to this, don't trust it until you know that they have been checked out, and whoever's writing the article has checked out and they haven't just come across either the article or maybe it's somebody from the company writing it and telling you how great their program is and making it sound like it's a third party reviewing it. So you do need to be careful on stuff like that. Was there any other questions?
No other questions. Go ahead. Other questions. Go ahead.
Okay. And come back here. Okay, the next item is how to generate a diagnostics report. And this is a Windows 10 Systems diagnostics report. And this is from Windows. It only takes a minute to generate the report. I did take some screenshots, but since it only takes a minute to do it, and I still have a little bit of time here, let's go ahead, and what you have to do is you have to put perfmon /report in run. So let's go ahead and minimize this. And I brought up run, and then PERF, oh, come on. MON /report. If I spelled that right and I remembered it right, you click OK. It's a resource monitor and performance monitor. It takes about 60 seconds for it to collect the data. It's more data than you need, more data than you'll understand. It may be too much. If these things are at all confusing, or if you have a lot of questions about them and what they are telling you, then you probably shouldn't run this because you won't understand what it's telling you. You're liable to get yourself into some issues that you don't want to try to resolve. So this is more for some of you who have a little bit more knowledge of your system and how to fix things and do it yourself. And if you screw it up, you don't care, you can go back because you've got backups and you've got systems in place that you can get back to square one. Or you just don't care and go back to square zero. So it takes a little over 60 seconds to collect all of the data. We'll just quickly look at a little bit of what kind of data that it collects. It's generating the report. It's already looked at it now. And like I say, it takes a minute to get the data, a minute or so to create the report. And once you get the report, you can save it. And you save it as an HTML, so you can go in and look at all of the data later on. So you don't have to leave the program open. And come on, there we go. And let's full screen it. Again, it doesn't make anything bigger, it just stretches it out more. And let me minimize a couple of things that I have on my screen that you don't see so I can get to these things. I did notice that when I saved it to my hard drive, that some of the graphics, these like the little green buttons here and the little pluses and so on, they didn't show up. They show up as like a broken graphic, not to worry about it. But what's it tell you? Number one, it tells the name of the computer. This is my NUC, so I call it a NUC because of the Three Stooges. It took 64 seconds to build it. It has some information. If I click that, let's see what it comes up with. Okay. Nothing, I guess. Okay. Now, basic system checks. Operating system check. Let's go ahead and hit the plus. When I do that, tell me I did one test and it passed. And 0 failed. Disk checks. Passed. And I've got 2 smart predict failure check was okay, and the logical disk dirty bit check worked, and it's fine. Security center techs. I'm not sure what these things are. You might have to do some checking to find out what they're actually looking at. System service check. Everything seems to have passed. And hardware and device checks. And again, how many tests it ran for controller fail count. And it looks like there were no failures at all for any of these devices. So we move down. System components, the CPU is normal. Network was idle during the test. And then the next item down from this, and we can go back, and I believe we can hit the this here and then click that for up, and it kind of closes the window, and we'll close that window. And then the next one was software configuration. Was that startup programs? Let's look at that. It shows me all of my startup programs. So I have a list of them. Hardware configuration, disk checks, and again, some of these things I'm not sure what they mean. Under system, I have 4 processors. CPU speed is 1696. Memory is 16. I have 16 gigabytes of RAM in this. Page selects are 4,000 bytes and so on. I'm not sure what that is. Okay, we'll close a couple of these things up just to bring it up on the screen. Desktop rating, BIOS, devices, the CPU. Services, system, network. Let's look at just the system. Oh, all kinds of information that probably wouldn't mean anything to me, and it might not mean anything to any of us. But it's there if we wanted to. Again, this is a simple performance report and monitor that Windows has built in. Under memory, counters, report statistics. Okay, 64-bit performance, and it tells me when it ran and how long, events processed, and just some information, payload, version, and counts, and so on. Not a lot of information that might help you, but again, if you've got some issues, this might help you narrow down, or if you take this report and bring it to wherever you're having it serviced, you may save them some time. They may not even be aware of some of this information, or take the time to look it up where you're just giving it to them. Any questions from the audience on that?
How does it compare to Belle Arc?
I don't know. I don't use Belle Arc, and I only just came across this this week, and I just ran it. For those of you who use Belle Arc, try it, do a comparison, and let us know.
Belle Arc will give you the code that you typed in to activate software. You know, that comes on the box, and if you lose your box or your paperwork or whatever, you can get it from Belle Arc. Does this give you that, you know?
I don't believe so. This is more of a performance. This is not a tracking that kind of information, as far as I know. I did not see anything in there that would give you that.
There's also a Windows app. It's called MS Info 32, and I think there may be a 64 version that's executable. That does give you just the Microsoft keys that are on your computer.
Yeah, so if you don't have those, the time to look for that information is when your computer's working, not when it stops working. So, if you don't have a copy of your key, you might want to go and run something like Belle Arc or to the other program that Bob mentioned, and get those keys before you need them, not after you need them. If your system's down and you have to install a new disk and it's asking for the key and you don't have it, you're not going to get it again. Okay, so we talked about the third one and the fourth one. I'm not going to talk about nearby sharing on Windows 10. That's coming with the new update that is scheduled, unofficially scheduled to be released this week, but I've not even heard that definitively. It's going to be called, and this even hasn't been definitively announced, it's supposed to be called the Spring Creators Update. It's going to have a number of 1803, which means the third month of 2018. I do have an article that if you're not interested in doing the update right away, there is an article there on how to delay it. To be honest with you, I haven't gone through it. I'm not concerned about it. But there is a way to forestall it. It may require you to have a pro version, but go through the article and see if there's a way to make it so it won't automatically update if you don't want it to. But what I did want to talk about a little bit, and I did get this from a couple of the last two articles that are on here, and what I did is I just gathered some of the titles of what's going to be in it, and let me bring that up, and it's going to be a PowerPoint. One of the things excuse me, today is the third presentation I've done this since last Sunday. Each of them have been a different presentation. And I'm doing another one tomorrow on the Windows 1709, which was the last big update of Windows, which I did for this group. Actually, there was a recording of it, I believe, and I think Stan played that recording. I was planning on for that group to do it tomorrow, but it hasn't even been released yet, and I don't know what all of the changes and what's new, what's changed, and what's deprecated yet. But I did read an article, and that was the last article on today's list, and I kind of put a list together. And when I did the 1709 Windows presentation, there's very little there that I felt was important to me that was improved and added to Windows to be a major update. There was a lot of 3D things, a lot of AI things, things where it looks like they were preparing us for the future, but there weren't a lot of things that would make a big difference to me. But it looks like there's a lot of updates in Windows 1803 in the next version. It will be coming out probably, as I say, this next week, that may be issues and things that I might be interested in, and hopefully maybe you as well. There's going to be something called the timeline. And the timeline is going to show a list of activities from all of your devices. And I did put a little explanation there, because the timeline feature, which was originally supposed to debut in the Fall Creators in the 1709, is going to be in the Spring Update. And what timeline does, it enhances the task view with a history of activities you've previously performed on your computer. So again, your computer is tracking you. But that's probably a good thing, because you want to go back a lot of times and know what you did to either reenact it or to get that same information again, or find out where you put it or where it came from, and you don't have a way of doing it, and apparently this is going to help that. The next item on the list is Near Share brings easy wireless file sharing. Windows 10 will now have a near share file sharing feature that works a lot like Apple's AirDrop, that you're going to be able to be near somebody else's computer with your laptop and be able to share files through the air, through I believe it's something like a personal Wi-Fi network, just to get the data to them. And it may be doing it through Bluetooth. I'm not sure how it's doing it. Another item that I thought was interesting was a diagnostic data viewer shows what Windows sends to Microsoft. So with this day of not knowing what's going on, what information is being shared, Windows is going to tell you what you're sending back to Microsoft. There's going to be a quick pairing for Bluetooth devices. More and more of us are getting Bluetooth devices, either in our home, in our car, and so on. And apparently there's going to be a way to pair them much more quickly. But then again, you're going to have security issues. You're going to have to read on how to prevent someone from pairing with your computer when you don't want them to. Also coming in this version, a progressive web apps. It's going to be called PWA in the Windows Store. The Microsoft Edge browser is going to gain a number of new features that allow running progressive web apps, or PWAs, on Windows 10. This is basically a new standard for web apps that behave like desktop apps. So what we're going to start seeing is more applications that are going to run from the cloud and behave like a desktop app, and it's going to be through this PWA system, and Microsoft is going to allow that, as well as other operating systems and other browsers. You're going to be able to manage fonts in settings and install them from the Windows Store. There's going to be Microsoft Edge improvements, some new Cortana features, some new My People settings. You're going to be able to get HDR video on more PCs. Microsoft is expanding HDR video support to more devices. There's going to be graphic settings for multi-GPU systems. And a GPU is a graphics processing unit, like your main processing unit on a computer is usually your central processor, your CPU. Now there's also more and more computers are coming with multiple graphics processing units, and you're going to be able to choose between them. You had a question?
No, I was just going to say that typically the Intel processor provides the graphic processing unit, unless you have an additional one from AMD or NVIDIA.
Right, and apparently what Windows is going to have the ability is, if you've got multiple graphic, well, you'll be able to choose which one, or maybe they'll work together. I'm not sure exactly where it's going with that. There's also going to be app permission options, so you're going to be able to say what a certain app can do or not do. There's going to be a focus assist, which will replace quiet hours. If you're not familiar, you can set quiet hours now on Windows for it not to do certain things during certain hours. So late at night, to turn sounds off, or not to do some videos, that sort of thing. And apparently there's going to be something called Focus Assist. It's going to take the place of that. There's going to be language packs in the Windows Store. You're going to be able to display and DPI scaling options. You'll be able to adjust those. Home group is going to go, the thing that's known as home group is going away. Password-free login on Windows 10s. 10s is Microsoft's answer to Chromebook, but it's going to be this. Windows 10s is going to be a scaled-down version of Windows that you can scale up at any time. I don't think you can only do it. I don't know that you can do it. I don't know that you can go back and forth. I don't believe you can go back and forth. But if you buy it as 10s, it's going to be the same cost. And then if you decide you want to go to regular Windows and not do the scaled down version, all you have to do is say, okay, I don't want 10S anymore. I want Windows Home, and you'll be able to use the same version. It's going to be a free upgrade. There'll be new settings and many other changes as well. And some of those changes are OneDrive status and navigation pane, Windows Update system tray icon, Windows Update will now block sleep, password recovery for local accounts, more fluent design. The design of Windows is going to change again, so the look and feel is going to be somewhat different. To what extent, I don't know. There's going to be a redesigned game bar, emoji typing improvements, startup app management, redesigned Windows Defender settings, or settings for Windows Defender, categories and privacy settings, quick access to app settings, snipping tool, and Paint 3D are going to have changes. Modern keyboard settings, prefer cellular data, and narrator in safe mode. You're going to be able to have narrator in the safe mode. And some other changes are data usage for Wi-Fi and Ethernet. You can choose your handwriting font and embedded handwriting font panel, because more and more of the laptops are going to support handwriting and our tablet type devices, or there'll be touch screens. Reset game mode settings, easier Windows Hello setup, control automatically hiding scroll bars, disable or enable the color filters hotkey, view and clear your dictionary, disk cleanup and storage settings, more modern sound options, word suggestions with a hardware keyboard, work folders on demand, eye control improvements, and multilingual text prediction. It looks like there's going to be a lot of changes in this version. A few other changes on larger scales will be features for developers and system administrators. I didn't list these because most of us aren't developers or system administrators. Linux application improvements. Most of us aren't doing much with Linux on Windows. Sets are gone, but should appear in. So they've taken sets away in this, and Redstone 5 will be the next update. This is called Redstone 4. That this update that's coming this week or this month, and the cloud clipboard is gone, but should reappear again in the next upgrade as well. So everything's new in Windows 10 Spring Creators Update. It's going to be available sometime this month, and this is from the article. And again, that article is listed on the website, and if we can get back to the website here.
Huey, we're not. Okay, you're back.
I'm back.
Huey?
Yes.
A couple of questions, comments and questions. First of all, I just came up with a notice that our internet connection is unstable, so that's why you've been kind of clipping in and out. But number one, it really seems like they are doing everything they can to make it as most complicated as possible. Putting something in, taking it out, it'll be back in Redstone. Home group is being discontinued. I don't even remember what that was. So I'm not going to miss it.
I used it.
Did you? Right, but the main thing I wanted to ask, Armin just coming out to the TechSig maybe 2 days ago, it was an announcement from Microsoft. They're changing drastically their business model in the next year or two, and I'm not sure whether they're going to try to become more services oriented and do much like what Apple is doing, where there's more services than hardware. But it sounded like they're going off in yet another whole different direction. Just harder to keep up with.
Well, wouldn't you agree, Stan, that computing has changed just in the last 3 or 4 years? So much of what we're doing is in the cloud. So we're actually running a lot of programs from the cloud. We're not doing it on our computers. So computing itself is changing a lot. The operating systems are changing. You take something like Google Chrome OS that runs on the Chromebooks, and they're right now at around 60% or more of the student computer usage in schools that Microsoft would like to get a bigger share. So they're trying this Windows 10s, which is an inexpensive way of doing it. Apple is coming out with a much cheaper iPad to try to get into that space, because the kids are growing up and starting in kindergarten or pre-kindergarten using Chromebooks. What are they going to use when they graduate? They're going to probably stay with a Chrome operating system or a lot of Google products, and certainly Microsoft and Apple don't want that. So they've got to make some changes to compete with it.
Yeah, one of the problems I have with this idea of depending on the cloud being there for so many activities, including the Office products, for instance, is that you absolutely have to have internet access to be able to use them. You can't take your computer and go off in a corner where you do not have internet access and write a letter.
That's not totally true, and I'm not sure with the Microsoft products, but I do know the Chrome docs, like on a Chromebook, where you really need to have internet access. You can run the Google Doc, for instance, locally create a document and write a whole document, or write emails and so on. And when you connect, it will then automatically upload all of that to your account and do what it needs to do. So you can work offline, but I'm not sure how the Microsoft products work that way, but I would suspect in some way you can still do some of that online on the computer without being connected, and when you connect, then you can complete it, save it, and so on out to the cloud. Any other questions?
No more questions.
Okay, with that then, I think we've had a pretty long session, but I think we covered an awful lot of materials. And thanks everybody for joining. Let me bring up my my logo so it comes at the end of the recording. And say again, this has been the Central Florida Computer Society, the Windows Special Interest Group WinSIG for Sunday, April 8th, 2018.